The Heart Sutra begins with a profound statement. Avalokiteśvara Bodhisattva, while practicing deeply the perfection of wisdom, clearly saw that the five aggregates are all empty, and thus relieved all suffering. Among all the words in this sentence, the phrase, clearly saw, deserves special attention. These two words reveal something essential about the Buddhist path. The Heart Sutra does not say that Avalokiteśvara believed the five aggregates were empty. It does not say that he accepted this teaching out of faith, repeated it as a doctrine, or merely understood it intellectually. Instead, he clearly saw it. This distinction is crucial because Buddhism is fundamentally a path of direct experience. The Buddha repeatedly encouraged his followers not to accept teachings blindly, but to investigate them carefully through their own practice and understanding. Wisdom arises not from accumulating beliefs, but from seeing reality as it truly is. The journey from ignorance to awakening is a journey from confusion to clear seeing. It is the movement from assumptions to understanding, from appearances to reality, and from suffering to freedom. To understand what Avalokiteśvara realized, we must first understand what it means to truly see. In everyday life, we often confuse knowledge with wisdom. We assume that because we know something intellectually, we understand it deeply. Yet there is a significant difference between information stored in the mind and insight that transforms the heart. Imagine reading dozens of books about swimming. You may learn every technique, understand the mechanics of movement, and memorize every rule of water safety. However, until you enter the water yourself, your understanding remains incomplete. The experience of floating, moving, and balancing in water can never be fully captured through words alone. The same principle applies to spiritual practice. A person may read countless teachings about impermanence, suffering, and non-self. They may discuss Buddhist philosophy with great skill and explain complex concepts with impressive clarity. Yet, when illness arises, when a relationship ends, or when plans fall apart, they may still experience intense fear, frustration, and attachment. Why? Because intellectual understanding has not yet become direct realization. Insight is different because it changes how we experience reality. It moves beyond concepts and becomes part of our way of seeing. Instead of merely thinking that everything changes, we begin to perceive change unfolding in every moment. Instead of believing that attachment causes suffering, we observe attachment creating suffering within our own minds. This direct observation marks the beginning of wisdom. Most people spend their lives looking at reality without truly seeing it. We see a body and assume it is permanent. We experience emotions and assume they define who we are. We observe thoughts and imagine they are completely true. We encounter possessions, achievements, and relationships and believe they can provide lasting security. The problem is not that these experiences exist. The problem is the interpretations we place upon them. A traveler crossing a desert may see water shimmering in the distance. Believing it to be real, they chase after it. Only later do they discover it was a mirage. The suffering did not come from the appearance itself. It came from misunderstanding what was being seen. In the same way, much of human suffering arises because we mistake appearances for reality. We assume that pleasant experiences will last forever. We imagine that unpleasant experiences will never end. We construct identities around changing thoughts and emotions. We cling to things that cannot remain. Insight begins when we stop merely looking at appearances and start investigating their true nature. Avalokiteśvara did not simply observe the five aggregates. He penetrated their nature and saw them clearly. How does such insight develop? The Buddhist answer is through careful observation, supported by meditation and mindfulness. Meditation is not an escape from reality. It is a method for encountering reality more directly. Ordinarily, the mind is constantly distracted. Thoughts race from one subject to another. Memories pull us into the past. Worries project us into the future. Desires, fears, and judgments color every experience. In this restless condition, reality is difficult to perceive clearly. Imagine trying to observe the bottom of a pond while someone continuously stirs the water. The mud rises, the water becomes cloudy, and visibility disappears. The bottom is still there, but it cannot be seen. The same is true of the mind. When the mind is agitated, wisdom remains hidden beneath layers of distraction and confusion. Through meditation, the mental waters gradually settle. As awareness becomes more stable, deeper truths begin to reveal themselves. A practitioner may observe a sensation arising in the body. Instead of reacting immediately, they simply watch. After a short time, the sensation changes and disappears. They observe an emotion. Anger arises, remains briefly, and then fades. They observe a thought. It appears unexpectedly, stays for a moment, and vanishes. Again and again, the same pattern emerges. Everything is changing, everything is moving, nothing remains fixed. This observation is no longer philosophical, it becomes experiential knowledge. One of the greatest obstacles to wisdom is the assumption that things are more stable than they truly are. Human beings naturally seek certainty. We want lasting happiness, lasting success, lasting relationships, and lasting identities. Yet the world operates according to impermanence. The seasons change, bodies age, emotions fluctuate, societies transform, entire civilizations rise and fall. Even mountains slowly erode over time. Despite living within this constantly changing reality, we often act as though permanence exists. We become attached to conditions that cannot remain unchanged. This attachment creates suffering. When Avalokiteśvara clearly saw reality, he saw beyond this illusion. He recognized that everything arises due to causes and conditions and eventually passes away. This realization was not depressing, it was liberating. When we stop demanding permanence from an impermanent world, much of our frustration disappears. We begin to flow with life rather than struggle against it. The phrase, "clearly saw," also suggests perception free from distortion. Most people do not see reality directly. Instead, they see reality through layers of conditioning. Past experiences influence present perceptions. Personal preferences shape judgments. Fears magnify threats. Desires exaggerate attractions. Prejudices influence conclusions. These mental filters often prevent us from seeing things as they truly are. Consider two people observing the same event. One perceives it as a disaster, while the other sees it as an opportunity. The external situation is identical, yet their interpretations differ dramatically. This demonstrates that suffering is often linked not only to circumstances, but also to the way those circumstances are perceived. Wisdom gradually removes these distortions. Like cleaning dust from a mirror, practice allows reality to be reflected more accurately. As the mind becomes clearer, it becomes less dominated by fear, craving, and confusion. Experience can then be observed with greater objectivity and understanding. Why does clear seeing matter so much? Because ignorance is the root of suffering. When we misunderstand reality, we cling to what cannot last. We resist what cannot be avoided. We build identities upon unstable foundations. These misunderstandings generate fear, anxiety, disappointment, and conflict. Insight dissolves these misunderstandings. When Avalokiteśvara saw the emptiness of the five aggregates, he saw that what we call a separate and permanent self is actually a collection of changing processes. The body changes, feelings change, perceptions change, mental formations change, consciousness changes. Nothing within these aggregates exists independently or permanently. Seeing this clearly weakens attachment. When attachment weakens, suffering diminishes. When attachment is completely released, liberation becomes possible. Thus, wisdom does not destroy reality. It removes illusion. It does not create freedom. It reveals the freedom that was obscured by misunderstanding. The phrase, "clearly saw," contains the essence of Buddhist practice. It reminds us that awakening is not achieved through belief alone, but through direct understanding. Knowledge may point us toward truth, but only insight can transform our relationship with suffering. Through mindfulness, meditation, and careful observation, practitioners gradually learn to see beyond appearances. They begin to recognize impermanence, interdependence, and the conditioned nature of all experience. As confusion fades, wisdom grows. As wisdom grows, attachment weakens. As attachment weakens, suffering begins to dissolve. Avalokiteśvara's realization was not a mystical gift granted from outside. It was the result of deep practice and clear seeing. The Heart Sutra invites us to follow the same path, to move beyond concepts and beliefs and discover the truth directly for ourselves. In the next lesson, we will begin examining the 5 aggregates themselves, the very components of experience that Avalokiteśvara investigated so deeply and ultimately recognized as empty.